In February 2009, UNC Chapel Hill's School of Law hosted the annual conference on race, class, gender, and ethnicity. This year, students, attorneys, community members, and activists gathered to discuss issues facing the LGBT community. The conference followed the November 2008 passage of Proposition 8, which was a California ballot measure that banned same-sex marriage. Although many viewed Proposition 8's passage as a setback to LGBT rights, the increased attention generated by both pro- and anti-Proposition 8 campaigns provided the opportunity to highlight other legal, social, and economic issues facing the LGBT community. The day-long conference offered diverse perspectives on lesbian and gay marriage, violence in the state, and the intersection of the LGBT movement with other progressive groups.
The 13th Annual Conference on Race, Class, Gender, and Ethnicity focused on the challenges and opportunities created by the same-sex marriage debate. Shannon Minter, one of the panelists on the Marriage and Recognition panel, discussed the opportunities that emerged after the passage of Proposition 8.
I was disappointed by the Prop 8 vote, of course, but in no way am I discouraged or demoralized about our long-term prospects, and that's both because the vote was so close, we came awfully close to winning, but also because it's clear to me that we're in the middle of just a very important internal political transformation of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community, and also I think an external transformation of our place in the world, kind of our place in society. The only way we have made so much progress, both in the legislative and litigation arenas, is by having support from the civil rights community, the mainstream traditional civil rights community, women's groups, the labor movement, and religious organizations. And I'll just say that in California, our state group, Equality California, has worked so hard to build those progressive alliances. And the LGBT community is not naturally a progressive community any more than any other community is naturally a progressive community. It takes a lot of work and effort and intentionality to make that happen. Again, when the marriage bill was in front of the state legislature, our primary witness was the president of the California NAACP, Alice Huffman.
Anti-Prop 8 rallies across the country demonstrated the growing solidarity with the LGBT community. With Prop 8's passage, other LGBT issues like expanded hate crime legislation gained increased exposure. UNC law professor Barbara Fetters discussed the pros and cons of hate crime legislation.
Any strategy that functions to expand the reach of the criminal justice system has to be examined critically. More broadly, I would argue, the push for hate crimes laws enforces a dichotomy, a good gay, bad gay dichotomy. Good gays are innocent victims of random violent attacks on the street, and these gays are worthy of enhanced protection under the criminal law. On the other hand, just to pick one example, transgender women, just picking up on something that Gael raised, whose economic circumstances mean they need to do sex work or engage in petty theft to survive, and who are selectively targeted for arrest and abuse by law enforcement, bad gays, not entitled to protection under hate crimes laws. Gay hate crime statutes don't include violence perpetrated by the state against us.
A big part of fighting for LGBT rights, and as some of us used to say, fighting for LGBT liberation, is about destroying the myth that LGBT people want special, extra added rights. And of course, the truth, as we've been pointing out, all day, is that LGBT people do not have rights in the United States. LGBT people are fighting to not be fired because you are a lesbian, to not be denied housing because you're a gay man, to not be put in jail because you're a trans woman. Currently, we know that there are not even so-called protections, federal so-called protections for LGBT people. Even the equal opportunity employment laws do not include sexuality or gender identity. In 31 states, including right here in North Carolina, it's perfectly legal to fire people because of their sexual orientation. In 39 states, perfectly legal to fire someone because of their gender identity. For 33, almost 34 years now, LGBT people have just been fighting just to get the US government to give us, well, we're demanding that we have the right to employment protection under the law. But let's make something very perfectly clear. Are people outraged at the fact that they're being fired because they're a lesbian or gay man? Or are they angry because they will not be able to pay their rent? Or they will not be able to feed themselves or their families? Is survival a special right? In a capitalist economy, a job is not a special interest issue. This is why same-sex marriage is a hot-button issue. And regardless of the differing views on marriage or the reasons LGBT people want to get married, it's abundantly clear that the ruling class in this country are unanimous in denying economic and healthcare benefits that are afforded to non-LGBT workers. That is their weapon of choice. It's economics. That's what they're denying people. LGBT people are just like everybody else. Just like in greater society, the majority of people are working class, the majority of LGBT people are working class people. They are, and we are, people of color. We are immigrants. We are parents and members of nuclear and extended families. And the vast majority of LGBT people in the United States live like every other worker, from paycheck to paycheck, concerned about their health care benefits, their money for childcare, whether or not we're going to pay our rents and our mortgages, and whether or not we're going to get out of debt because of our fabulous lifestyle. I'm sure. And in the same way that they use racism and sexism as a divide and conquer, the climate of terror and stigma to keep LGBT people isolated from the rest of society goes on. And I think it's important because I'm here in North Carolina. It's 2009. And regardless, again, some of us are professional LGBT people. I'm a professional trans person. People have paid me to be trans, right? But for the vast majority of LGBT people, can you be out at work or in your neighborhoods or within your families without the fear of violence or arrests or deportations or having your children taken away from you? It's so important that our analysis continues to look at this in a very multi-layered way. Is our analysis inclusive of class and race and gender and sexuality as well as gender identity? Are we making the links and the connections of the multiple oppression in our work? Are we building coalitions? Are we making new alliances? And most importantly, are we showing solidarity with struggles outside our current movement? Solidarity isn't just about who puts things together and organizing, it's also about showing up. And I always think it's just a really simple kind of thing, that we all showed up today. That's solidarity. That you're sitting in these chairs is an act of solidarity. If you didn't think that you were coming to do a political act, or you're coming to do a civil disobedience or do a demonstration, but in the eyes of the religious right, you have, by showing up today. Because there, in a different time, if the movement wasn't so strong, there would be a picket line around this school right now, around this campus, here in North Carolina, saying this conference shouldn't exist. This is an act of solidarity, and I thank you all for being here and doing that.